Ever crack open like a dusty old tech manual and find yourself like blown away by what they were thinking like way back when?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing today. We're going back to 2007 to look at fiber to the home.
Right.
And we got this fascinating document from Telefonica, which, if you don't know, is a huge telecom company.
Right.
And they were already mapping out how to build services on a network most people hadn't even like dreamed of yet.
Yeah, it's wild. They knew right off the bat that fiber wasn't just a faster internet connection. Like, it was a whole new ballgame.
Totally.
And this presentation we're looking at, it's from their services department in Spain.
Okay.
And it's like a blueprint for the future of connectivity, even back then.
I love it. It's not just an upgrade, it's a whole different universe.
Read it.
And they say it loud and clear, literally, on slide 7, FTTH is not ADSL.
Right.
No kidding. They even wrote it in Spanish for emphasis. LFTTH, no SADSL.
Nice.
So they knew they couldn't just slap a new coat of paint on the old ADSL model.
Exactly. And that's where their forward thinking really shines.
Okay.
On slide 4, they're already talking about rethinking all the old assumptions about networks.
Oh, wait.
Like, how do you even design a service when you've got this much bandwidth to play with? It's like they were handed a supersonic jet when everyone else was still using horses and buggies.
That's a fantastic analogy. They were definitely ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about raw speed.
Right.
They saw fiber as a platform for entirely new services and experiences. Slide 4 talks about creating a foundation to maximize the potential of FTTH. They were thinking big picture, long before most people even had fiber on their radar.
Yeah. And to do that, they took inspiration from a surprising place, software development.
Oh, really?
Yeah. On slide 8, they outline their component-based model for building services.
Okay.
Which is basically the same approach that makes modern software so powerful.
Okay.
Instead of these huge, clunky systems, everything is broken down into smaller, reusable components.
Interesting.
It's like building with Legos.
So instead of one giant, messy internet service, you've got all these different components that can be snapped together in different ways.
Exactly.
You need faster downloads. Add a speed boosting component.
Right.
Want rock solid video conferencing. There's a component for that too.
Yeah.
And because they're independent, you can mix and match to create a custom internet experience.
Exactly.
It's brilliant.
Absolutely. And they were already thinking about how this modular approach would make things easier to manage and scale.
Right.
Slide 8 highlights how these components could be mapped to real-world things like network configurations and billing systems.
Oh.
This meant that whether you're talking tech specs or your monthly bill, everything is consistent and streamlined.
That's such a crucial detail. It's one thing to have a cool idea. It's another to actually make it work in the real world.
Yeah.
And it gets even cooler.
What's that?
On slide 9, they're already advocating for what we now call net neutrality.
Wow, really?
They saw the importance of keeping the network open and fair so no single company could control the entire internet experience.
It's remarkable how they were already grappling with these huge, complex issues back in 2007. They even talk about how different providers could offer services on the same fiber optic connection.
Really?
Imagine having multiple internet providers competing for your business, all running on the same infrastructure.
Talk about choices.
I know, right?
That would be a game changer. But this wasn't just some pie-in-the-sky dreaming.
Right.
Slide 10 reveals they put their model through the ringer, testing it against real-world scenarios, and even rejecting ideas that didn't hold up.
Interesting.
It was a very iterative process, constantly refining and improving their approach.
They even quote software engineer Grady Booch on this very point. Modeling helps to understand, ideate, represent, communicate, administer, and build complex systems.
Okay.
Modeling helps to ignore the details to focus on the essence of what we are trying to build.
I like that.
It highlights the importance of planning and preparation, especially when you're talking about something as massive and complex as a nationwide fiber optic network.
Speaking of complex, on slide 12, they lay out their 3-level model for FTTH.
Okay.
Access, basic connectivity, and advanced connectivity and service enablers.
Okay.
Imagine building a house.
Okay.
First, you lay the foundation.
Right.
That's your access level, the physical infrastructure of fiber optic cables and equipment.
Right. The groundwork.
Then you build the walls and the roof.
Right.
That's basic connectivity, setting up the network and getting it talking to the rest of the world.
Okay.
Finally, you add all the cool stuff that makes it a home.
Yeah.
Your comfy couch, your big TV, your super fast internet.
Uh-huh. I like it.
That's advanced connectivity, where things get really interesting for us as users.
Yep.
And this is where all those individual components we talked about come into play.
Okay.
On slide 13, they break down each level in more detail, showing how it all fits together.
I see.
Starting with access, they introduced this concept of the IUA, the Unique Access Identifier.
Okay.
Think of it like your home address in this new fiber optic world.
Okay, got it.
The IUA is how they identify your specific location on the network and deliver the services you're paying for.
Okay.
It's a critical piece of the puzzle because it allows for personalized service delivery and management.
Makes sense.
It's like each home having its own dedicated lane on the information superhighway. And when we move up to basic connectivity on slide 13, we see how they use different types of VLANs. Think of them as specialized lanes on that highway to manage different types of internet traffic. Exactly. Some lanes are reserved for high-priority traffic that needs super fast speeds and low latency, like video calls or online gaming.
Right.
Others are for less time-sensitive traffic, like email or web browsing.
Makes sense.
This is all about ensuring a smooth and efficient flow of data across the network.
Right. So you don't have like gaming traffic competing with your Zoom call or whatever.
And finally, we reach the advanced connectivity level where things get really exciting.
Yeah.
This is where we see components like mayorista, wholesale, and minorista, retail, come into play.
Okay.
Now, those sound a bit technical.
Yeah, a little bit.
Think of them like specialized tools for creating different types of internet services.
Okay.
Mayorista components are the big picture tools used for things like connecting to the global internet backbone.
Yep.
Minorista components are more focused on delivering specific services to you, the end user, like streaming video or making phone calls over the internet.
Right.
It's all starting to come together. We've got the foundation, the walls, the roof, and now we're adding in all the cool gadgets and appliances that make a house a home.
Yeah.
And just like you can have different brands and models of appliances, Telefonica envisioned a world where you could choose from a variety of internet service providers and customize your connection to meet your specific needs.
And they were very deliberate about making sure this new world of fiber optic internet would be flexible enough to support a mix of services.
Right.
As they highlight on slide 27, they wanted to make sure you could have voice, data, IPTV, everything running smoothly on the same fiber optic connection.
Nice.
No more separate lines for everything.
It's amazing how they were already laying the groundwork for the connected world we live in today. But how did they plan to actually bring this fiber optic revolution to millions of homes?
Well, they knew it wasn't going to be like flipping a switch,
Right.
Like they weren't going to just suddenly make fiber appear in every home in Spain.
Right.
It had to be a gradual rollout.
Makes sense.
And that's where it gets really impressive.
Oh, yeah.
On slides 18 and 19, they lay out their deployment model.
Okay.
And you can tell they were thinking big about scalability and efficiency from day one.
Like they were planning a massive banquet or something.
Yeah, exactly like that. They didn't go whole hog right away, Like imagine cooking for everyone who might show up.
Right.
Instead, they started smaller and scaled up as they went.
Smart.
They called this a phased approach.
Okay. Slide 19 actually shows how they plan to initially equip their central offices for like 25–30% coverage.
So not even half.
Nope. Because they knew they could add capacity later on.
Makes sense. Why overspend on day one when you can scale as you need to?
Exactly. They were strategic about the whole thing.
So they weren't building out the entire network at once.
No. They were much smarter than that.
Okay.
The feeder network is what they called it.
Okay.
That's the part that carries the fiber optic signal from the central office.
Gotcha.
That was designed for 100% coverage right from the start.
Oh, wow. So they went all in on that from the beginning.
Yes, because that's the backbone. You got to make sure that's solid. But the distribution points, those boxes you see on like a telephone pole, I know what you mean. Those were handled differently.
So they were already thinking about those last mile connections. Oh, absolutely. Getting that fiber from the pole to your house, they had that mapped out.
Wow.
They even pre-wired many of those building drop points.
The spots where the fiber actually comes into your house.
Yes. Now, that seems like a small thing.
It does.
But it's actually huge. Slide 19 even mentions this. Pre-cabling saved them a ton of time and money.
Wow, like they were prepping the ground before planting the seeds or something?
Exactly. Smart, right. But think about it. You've got all these distribution points scattered everywhere.
Right.
How do you keep track of it all?
Good point.
Well, they came up with this system called aggregation CTOs.
What's that?
CTO grouping in English.
Okay.
Basically, it's a way to organize all those distribution points.
Especially in cities, I'm guessing?
Yeah, exactly. densely populated areas, you need a system. By grouping them strategically, they could optimize the whole layout of the network.
And I bet it's way easier to maintain, too.
Oh, for sure. Like having a well-organized toolbox, everything in its place.
Right. But even with the best planning, sometimes things go wrong.
Totally.
What happens if a cable gets cut or some equipment just fails?
Oh, that's where their forward thinking comes in again.
Really?
Big time. On slide 62, they introduce out-of-band monitoring.
Okay, that sounds pretty technical.
It is a bit, but stick with me.
Okay.
Imagine a separate system constantly checking the network like it's got its finger on the pulse.
So like a doctor on call, but for the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And get this, the monitoring system doesn't even interfere with your internet traffic.
Really? How's that even work?
It's wild, right? They use different wavelength of light to send signals through the fiber.
Wow.
Yeah, like sending a scout ahead of the army to check for roadblocks.
So they could spot problems before they became big issues.
You got it. Slide 63 even mentions how it could automatically detect fiber cuts.
Which are like a nightmare for any network, right?
The worst. But they were on top of it.
It's like a self-healing network.
Right. They really did think of everything. It's not just the big picture stuff either.
It's those little details that make the difference.
Exactly. And that attention to detail, it even goes for the services themselves.
What do you mean?
Well, they were already thinking past that old one-size-fits-all internet model.
Okay.
Slide 58 talks about Red 50, which is all about differentiated services.
I'm not sure if...
Think of it like choosing your seat on a plane, economy, or first class.
Okay, so instead of everyone getting the same internet package, you could customize it. Like if I'm a gamer, I could get a super fast connection.
Exactly. And if you just check email and stuff, you go with something simpler, cheaper.
That makes sense. But wouldn't that create like a two-tiered internet?
That's the million-dollar question. It gets right to the heart of net neutrality, even today.
How so?
Well, on the one hand, sure, maybe some people get faster internet.
Because they pay more.
Right. But those high-priority things like video calls, those work better for everyone.
I see what you mean.
But on the other hand, what about fairness? Does everyone really have equal access?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's why net neutrality is still such a hot topic today. Finding that balance, innovation versus fairness.
It's amazing to me that they were already thinking about all this stuff back in 2007.
I know, right? Like most people hadn't even heard of fiber optic internet back then.
Exactly. They were true pioneers.
Absolutely. And not just in the tech itself, but like you were saying, the whole impact on society.
It's like they were looking ahead and seeing this whole new world opening up.
It's kind of like that old saying, right? Build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door.
Except in this case, it's lay a faster cable and, well, you get the idea.
Yeah, but it's not just about speed, is it? It's about what you can do with that speed, how it changes things.
And that brings us right back to that question of differentiated services and net neutrality.
Right, because if you can control the speed, you can control a lot more than that.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so fascinating about looking at this document from Telefonica.
What do you mean?
Well, they were clearly excited about the possibilities of this new technology.
As they should be. It was revolutionary.
Totally. But they were also aware of the potential downsides.
The two-tiered internet problem.
Yeah, exactly. They knew that if they weren't careful, they could end up creating a system where some people had a much better experience than others just because they could afford to pay more.
Which goes against the whole idea of the internet, right? A level playing field for everyone.
Right. And that's something we're still grappling with today.
More than ever, I'd say. With streaming services, online gaming, the metaverse, it's a whole new world out there.
And the stakes are even higher now.
Exactly. Back then, it was mostly about downloading music and browsing the web.
Now it's our work, our education, our social lives. Everything's online.
And that's why net neutrality is such a crucial issue. It's about making sure that everyone has equal access to this incredible tool, regardless of their income or where they live.
It's about ensuring that the internet remains a force for good in the world.
A tool for education, for communication, for innovation, not just another way for big corporations to make a quick buck.
Well said. So what do you think, listeners?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
What are your hopes and concerns about the future of the internet?
Do you think we can find a way to balance innovation with accessibility?
Hit us up on social media and let us know. This has been a fascinating deep dive into the early days of fiber optic internet.
And a reminder that even though the technology has evolved, the fundamental questions remain the same.
Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time, and we'll see you in the next episode.